Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Ramanaya. Thank you, devotees from Los Angeles. Seattle devotees are grateful for this opportunity to contribute to Bhagavan's 73rd Aradhana Day global celebrations. Our offering to Bhagavan consists of bhajans and readings by devotees Vishwanathan, Sai Kumar, Prabha, Rajesh, Sridevi, Harish, and Shashidhar.
Om Ramana, Om Ramana, Om Ramana, Om Ramana, Upanishad Vandya, Om Ramana, Upanishad Vandya, Om Ramana, Udara Leela, Om Ramana, Udara Leela, Om Ramana, Uttama Purusha, Om Ramana, Uttama Purusha, Om Ramana, Shri Rama Chita, Om Ramana, Shri Rama Chita, Om Ramana, Vara Ramana, Vara Ramana, Vara Ramana, Vara Ramana, Varada Bhayakara Vara Ramana, Varada Bhayakara Vara Ramana, Vanchita Phalada Vara Ramana, Vanchita Phalada Vara Ramana, Vachama Gochara Vara Ramana, Vachama Gochara Vara Ramana, Shri Rama Chita Vara Ramana, Shri Rama Chita Vara Ramana, Nidhi Ramana, Nidhi Ramana, Nidhi Ramana, Nidhi Ramana, Nishala Tattva Nidhi Ramana, Nishala Tattva Nidhi Ramana, Nitya Mahotsava Nidhi Ramana, Nitya Mahotsava Nidhi Ramana, Nirupama Shubha Guna Nidhi Ramana, Nirupama Shubha Guna Nidhi Ramana, Shri Rama Chita Nidhi Ramana, Shri Rama Chita Nidhi Ramana, Jaya Ramana, Jaya Ramana, Jaya Ramana, Jaya Ramana, Jaya Vara Prada, Jaya Ramana, Jaya Vara Prada, Jaya Ramana, Jagadodhara, Jaya Ramana, Jagadodhara, Jaya Ramana, Jivan Mukta, Jaya Ramana, Jivan Mukta, Jaya Ramana, Shri Rama Chita 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 Jaya Ramana.
Om Namo Bhagavate Ramanaya. Upadesha Saram meaning. By the will of Creator, action bears fruit. Is action then supreme? No, it is inert, unconscious. The fruits of action are not everlasting and they cause one to fall into the great ocean of karma, blocking spiritual progress. That action which is done without personal desire, whose fruits are surrendered to the Lord, purifies the mind and leads to liberation. Ritual worship, repetition of sacred names, and meditation are done with the body, the speech, and the mind, and they progress in excellence in the order. To serve the world looked upon as the manifestation of the Lord is to worship to the Lord of the eight forms. Silent meditation in the mind is higher than the devotional praise or the uttering of sacred names loudly or softly. Like an unbroken flow of oil or a stream of water, continuous meditation is better than that which is interrupted. Meditation on the identity of the individual and the Lord, I am He, is more purifying than meditation which assumes a difference between them. By the power of meditation, devoid of thoughts, one is established in true being, and this is supreme devotion. The practice of fixing the mind in its own source in the heart is, without doubt, true bhakti yoga and understanding. The mind may be subdued by regulating the breath, just as a bird is restrained when caught in a net. This practice controls the mind. Mind and breath, manifesting in thought and action, branch out from a common source, the Shakti. Absorption or Laya and destruction or Nasa are the two kinds of mind control. When merely absorbed, it emerges again, but not when it is destroyed. When the mind has been suspended by breath restraint, it may then be annihilated by single-minded attention to the self. What actions remains to be done by that great yogi whose mind has been extinguished and who rests in his own true and transcendent state of being? If one's attention is turned away from the external objects of sense and focused on the light of the self, that is the true vision of reality. Again, if one persists in asking, what is this mind of mine? It will be found that there is really no such thing as mind. This is the direct path. What one has thought of as mind is merely a bundle of thoughts. All these thoughts depend upon the one thought of I, the ego. Therefore, the so-called mind is the I thought. If one asks himself, where does this I come from? It will vanish. This is self-enquiry or Atma Vichara. Where this I vanished and merged in its source, there appears spontaneously and continuously an I this is heart, the infinite supreme being. And this uninterrupted I is the true meaning of the term I, because when the waking ego I daily disappears in deep sleep, the real I remains. The true I, the one reality, is not the body nor or the senses or mind or breath or ignorance. These are all inert and insentient. There is only one being that can know reality. The one being is itself reality and itself consciousness. Both creator and creature are essentially one and the same reality. Their apparent differences are due only to differences in the form and levels of knowledge. When the creature abandons its illusory individual form and recognizes itself as without attributes, it sees the creator as its own true self. Being the self is knowing the self, because there is only one self and not two. This being and knowing the self is abiding in the reality. True knowledge is beyond what we think as knowledge or ignorance, because in the state of non-differentiation, what other things to be known? If one's true self is known, then there is neither birth nor death, but eternal being, consciousness, bliss. The jiva who attains the state of supreme bliss beyond any thoughts of bondage or freedom is truly devoted to the Lord. When the individual I has disappeared and the real I has been found, that is the excellent tapas. Ramana says this. Loka samasto sukhino bhavantu.
Om Namo Bhagavate Sri Arunachala Ramanaya. From the book Talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi. Talk number 349. Sri Shankara's Path to Salvation Through Discrimination. The following is Sri Ramana Maharshi's preface to Mr. S. Krishna's translation of Sri Shankara's Viveka Chudamani, or Crown Gem of Discrimination. Every being in the world yearns to be always happy, free from the taint of sorrow, and desires to get rid of bodily ailments which are not of his true nature. Further, everyone cherishes the greatest love for himself, and this love is not possible in the absence of happiness. In deep sleep, though devoid of everything, one has the experience of being happy. Yet, due to the ignorance of the real nature of one's own being, which is happiness itself, people flounder in the vast ocean of material existence, forsaking the right path that leads to happiness, and act under the mistaken belief that the way to be happy consists in obtaining the pleasures of this and the other world. A safe guide. But alas, that happiness which has not the taint of sorrow is not realized. It is precisely for the purpose of pointing out the straight path to happiness that God Shiva took on the guise of Sri Shankaracharya, wrote the commentaries on the Triune Institutes, Prasthanatraya of the Vedanta, which extol the excellence of this bliss and demonstrated it by his own example in life. These commentaries, however, are of little use to those ardent seekers who are intent upon realizing the bliss of absolution but have not the scholarship for studying them. It is for such as these that Sri Shankara revealed the essence of commentaries in this short treatise, the crown gem of discrimination, explaining in detail the points that have to be grasped by those who seek absolution and thereby directing them to the true and straight path. Learning won't do. Sri Shankara opens the theme by observing that it is hard indeed to attain human birth, and one should, having attained it, strive for the realization of the bliss of liberation, which is verily the nature of one's being. By jnana or knowledge alone is this bliss realized, and jnana is achieved only through vichara or steady enquiry. In order to know this method of enquiry, says Sri Shankara, one should seek the favor of a guru, and proceeds to describe the qualities of the guru and his sishya and how the latter should approach and serve the master. He further emphasizes that in order to realize the bliss of liberation, one's own individual effort is an essential factor. Mere book learning never yields this bliss, which can be realized only through enquiry or vichara, which consists of sravana or devoted attention to the precepts of the Guru, manana or deep contemplation, and nididhyasana or the cultivation of steady poise in the self. The three paths. The three bodies, physical, subtle, and casual, are non self and are unreal. The self or I is quite different from them. It is due to ignorance that the sense of the self or the I notion is foisted on that which is not self, and this indeed is bondage. Since from ignorance arises bondage, from knowledge ensues liberation. To know this from the Guru is Sravana. To reject the three bodies consisting of the five sheaths, physical, vital, mental, noistic, and blissful, as not I, and to extract through subtle enquiry of who am I, even as the central blade of grass is delicately drawn out from its whorl, that which is different from all the three bodies, and is existent as one and universal in the heart as aham or I, and denoted by the words tvam in the scriptural dictum tat tvam asi, that thou art. This process of subtle enquiry is manana or deep contemplation. The Beatitude. The world of name and form is but an adjunct of Sat or Brahman, and being not different from it is rejected as such and is affirmed as nothing else but Brahman. The instruction by the Guru to the disciple of the Mahavakya, Tat Tvam Asi, which declares the identity of the Self and the Supreme, is Upadesha. The disciple is then enjoined to remain in the beatitude of Aham Brahman, I the Absolute. Nevertheless, the old tendencies of the mind sprout up thick and strong and form an obstruction to that state of beatitude. These tendencies are threefold, and egoism, which is their root, flourishes in the externalized and differentiating consciousness caused by the forces of vikshepa or dissipation due to rajas and avarana or envelopment due to tamas. Churning the mind. To install the mind firmly in the heart until these forces are destroyed, and to awaken with unswerving, ceaseless vigilance, the true and cognate tendency which is characteristic of the Atman and is expressed by the dicta Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, and Brahmaivaham, Brahman alone am I, is termed Nididhyasana or Atmanusandhana, that is constancy in the self. This is otherwise called Bhakti, Yoga, and Dhyana. Atmanusandhana has been likened to churning the curd to draw forth butter, the mind being compared to the churning rod, the heart to the curd, and the practice of constancy in the self to the process of churning. Just as by churning the curd, butter is extracted, and by friction, fire is kindled, even so, by unswerving vigilant constancy in the self, ceaseless like the unbroken filamentary flow of oil, is generated the natural or changeless trance or nirvikalpa samadhi, which readily and spontaneously yields that direct, immediate, unobstructed, and universal perception of Brahman, which is at once knowledge and experience, and which transcends time and space. Limitless bliss. This is self realization, and thereby is cut asunder the Hridaya Granthi or the knot of the heart, the false delusions of ignorance, the vicious and age long tendencies of the mind which constitute this knot are destroyed. All doubts are dispelled and the bondage of karma is severed. Thus has Sri Shankara described in this crown gem of discrimination, samadhi or trance transcendent, which is the limitless bliss of liberation beyond doubt and duality, and has at the same time indicated the means for its attainments. To realize this state of freedom from duality is the summum bonum of life, and he alone that has won it is a Jivan Mukta, the liberated one while yet alive, and not he who has merely a theoretical understanding of what constitutes Purushartha or the desired end and aim of human endeavor. Final freedom. Thus, defining a Jivan Mukta, he is declared to be free from the bonds of threefold karmas, Sanchita, Agami, and Prarabdha. The disciple who has reached this stage then relates his personal experience. The liberated one is free indeed to act as he pleases, and when he leaves the mortal frame, attains absolution and returns not to this birth which is death. Sri Shankara thus describes realization that connotes liberation as twofold, that is, Jivan Mukti and Videha Mukti, referred to above. Moreover, in this short treatise, written in the form of a dialogue between a guru and his disciple, he has considered many relevant topics.
आनंद स्वरूप आपद बांधव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला
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 अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव 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 अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूपा पद्बान्धवा आश्रितपालक अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूपा पद्बान्धव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
प्रत्यक्ष परमा अरुणाचला
प्रत्यक्ष परमा अरुणाचला
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
विधिमाधव वन्दित चरणा
प्रत्यक्ष परमा अरुणाचला
प्रत्यक्ष परमा अरुणाचला
जगदित कारण विराजत चल रूप
जगदित कारण विरजद चल रूप
जगदित कारण विराजत चल रूप
जगदित कारण विरजद चल रूप
विमल श्री अरुणाचला
विमल श्री अरुणाचला
जगदित कारण विराजत चल रूप
जगदित कारण विरजद चल रूप
विमल श्री अरुणाचला
विमल श्री अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूपा पद्बान्धव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूपा पद्बान्धव आश्रित पालक अरुणाचला
संसारार्णवतारक मूर्ते
संसारानवतारक मूर्ते
संसारार्णवतारक मूर्ते
संसारानवतारक मूर्ते
स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकर
स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकर
संसारार्णवतारक मूर्ते
संसारानवतारक मूर्ते
स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकर
स्मरणे साक्षात् मोक्षकर
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला
तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
अपित कुचाम्बा समेत मूर्ते
तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला
तेजोमय श्री अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचला अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूपा पद्बान्धवाश्रित पालक अरुणाचला
आनंद स्वरूप आपद्बान्धव आश्रितपालक अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल
अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचल शिव अरुणाचला.
Thank you, devotees. We would now like to invite devotees from San Diego to continue the celebrations. Om Namo Bhagavate Shri Ramanaya.